Mistaken authority. The first streaks of sunlight were still unfurling across the sky when Officer Mason Ryder rolled out from the precinct garage in his patrol cruiser. It was a calm morning, or so it seemed. The scanner on his dashboard crackled to life with a Bolobe on the lookout for a silver Ford sedan, license plate beginning with 3XJ482. The alert linked the vehicle to an attempted robbery earlier that morning in Midtown. The suspects had fled, and the vehicle had been reported stolen not even 30 minutes before dispatch sent out the warning. Adrenaline licked at the edge of Mason's senses. This was his chance. A solid bust. He hadn't had one of those in weeks. Ever since transferring from Cedar Heights to Eastbrook PD, it felt like he was constantly chasing shadows, writing traffic tickets, and managing neighborhood complaints about barking dogs. Today might finally be different. Cruising down Archer Avenue, his eyes swept every block like radar. The shops were just starting to open to bakeries letting out warm smells of dough and coffee. Early commuters waiting for their buses, joggers sidestepping puddles from the night rain. Then he saw it. At the light near Broad Market, a silver Ford sedan slowed to a stop. The license plate, 3XJ483. Just one digit off. But it was enough to raise suspicion in Mason's mind. His pulse surged. His training told him to act quickly. He flipped on his lights. The car responded, easing toward the curb. Mason pulled up behind it, unbuckling his seatbelt as he stepped out with his right hand resting casually on the butt of his holstered firearm. He approached the driver's side with a practiced authority, keeping his face neutral. The window rolled down, and inside sat a middle-aged black woman wearing a sharply tailored navy suit. Her short curls were neatly styled, and her pearl earrings gleamed in the early morning sun. "Good morning, officer," she said, her brow furrowed, her tone polite but cautious. Mason ignored her greeting. "Is this your vehicle?" he asked, his voice tight. "Yes," she said slowly. "I just left for work. Why have I been stopped?" "Registration and license," he demanded. The woman hesitated before reaching into her handbag, moving deliberately. "Can I at least understand what this is about?" she asked. "This vehicle is connected to a crime earlier today. It's been reported stolen. I need you to step out of the car with your hands where I can see them." Her face tightened with confusion. "That's absurd. I haven't done anything wrong. This is my car." "I said step out now," he snapped. When she paused, clearly trying to process the escalation, Mason didn't wait. He yanked open the door, reached in, and forcibly pulled her out of the seat. She cried out more in surprise than pain. He twisted her arms behind her back and snapped cold handcuffs onto her wrists. "You are under arrest for grand theft auto," he said as he pushed her toward the squad car. "I demand you stop," she said, voice rising but still composed. "Do you even know who I am?" Mason laughed. "Lady, I don't give a damn who you are. You're going in. I'm Judge Lorraine Baylor, and you just made the greatest mistake of your career." For a second, Mason's bravado faltered, but he recovered fast, rolling his eyes and shoving her into the back of the cruiser. He radioed for backup. "Unit 21 to dispatch. Suspect detained. Female mid-40s. Silver Ford, plates match partial description. Requesting supervisor on site." Within minutes, Sergeant Miguel Harper arrived in a separate patrol car. He stepped out, squinting toward the vehicle Mason had stopped. He strode toward Mason with urgency. "What do we have?" Harper asked, nodding toward the back seat. "Vehicle matches the Bolo. Suspect resisted when asked to exit. We detained her," Mason reported. Harper peered through the back window and froze. He turned to Mason. "Is that Judge Baylor?" "Who?" "Judge Lorraine Baylor. She presides over the 9th District. She's one of the most senior justices in the state." The color drained from Mason's face. "I didn't know that." Harper walked over, opened the back door, and extended a hand. "Your Honor," he said gently, "I'm Sergeant Harper. I deeply apologize for this. There seems to have been a very serious misunderstanding." Lorraine Baylor stepped out of the car with dignity, though her wrists were red from the tight cuffs. "A misunderstanding," she said coolly. "I was pulled over without explanation, manhandled, and thrown into the back of a squad car like a criminal. I take full responsibility." Harper said, shooting Mason a sharp look. Officer Ryder will remove the cuffs immediately. Mason scrambled forward with the key, fumbling it as he tried to unlock the restraints. His hands were shaking now. I didn't recognize you, ma'am, he mumbled. That's not the issue, Lorraine said icily. It shouldn't take recognition to treat someone with respect. It shouldn't matter who I am. The cuffs finally clicked open. Lorraine stepped back, adjusting her suit. I'm going to speak with Chief Atwood today, she said flatly. And I expect this to be reviewed. Thoroughly. Without another word, she returned to her car, gathered her things, and drove off. Harper didn't speak for a long moment. Then he turned to Mason. You're done for the day. Go back to the station. She matched the description. Mason tried. The plate didn't match. The make didn't match. And you escalated with zero justification. That's on you. As Mason drove back to the station in silence, the reality of what had just happened began to set in. His hands trembled on the steering wheel. He tried to replay the stop in his mind, looking for where he might defend himself, but the harder he searched, the more undeniable the facts became. Judge Lorraine Baylor's complaint was filed by noon. By 3 o'clock, the mayor's office had called the police chief. Local media had picked up a blurry cell phone video from a passerby. It showed Mason pulling a woman from her car and handcuffing her on the sidewalk. The woman's voice remained calm, even as Mason's commands grew louder. By 5 o'clock, the footage had gone viral. That night, Mason's phone buzzed with texts from friends and fellow officers. Some asked if it was real. Others said nothing, but sent shaking head emojis. A few offered sarcastic encouragement. Most were silent. The next morning, the Police Accountability Review Board opened an inquiry. Public outcry poured in from all corners of the city. Civic groups, legal associations, community organizers, even members of Mason's own precinct were unusually quiet around him. When Judge Baylor finally addressed the media 3 days later, she didn't rage. She didn't curse. Instead, she gave a speech standing on the courthouse steps, dressed in a black judicial robe and framed by the stone pillars of justice itself. What happened to me, she said, wasn't an isolated incident. It was a window into a larger issue. I'm not asking for special treatment. I'm demanding equal dignity for everyone. Because if it can happen to Maya Judge in my own city, it can happen to anyone. Her words echoed across news stations, social media platforms, and courtrooms. And for Officer Mason Ryder, they echoed in the deep corners of his conscience. His suspension came a week later. The department placed him under formal investigation. Community leaders called for mandatory retraining in de-escalation and racial bias. And a month later, the department introduced the Baylor Protocol, a series of guidelines for officers that required clear justification, calm engagement, and supervisor oversight for stops involving reported stolen vehicles. Mason sat through every seminar, every lecture, every simulation, not out of obligation, but because something inside him had cracked. The version of himself he thought he was sharp, fair, measured wasn't the one who showed up that morning. He eventually requested a transfer, not to escape, but to start again. And Judge Lorraine Baylor? She continued presiding over court with her quiet wisdom. But sometimes, when a case involving misconduct came before her bench, she paused just briefly before delivering a ruling. Not because she doubted, but because she remembered. She remembered what it felt like to be judged before being heard. And she made sure no one in her courtroom ever experienced that again.